Today we're gonna get the Super Duty set to haul. This is gonna be towing some heavy trailers. We're doing a gooseneck hitch in here. Probably the best gooseneck brand hitch would be B&W. Curt ones are good. The B&W just seem to be built a little stronger for the heaviest of hauling, doing gooseneck type hauling or fifth wheel. This truck did not come with it, unfortunately, so we've got nothing in the box. We're gonna have to drill a couple holes. Onboard air compressor is gonna be frame mounted. It's gonna be controlled in the cab to make it convenient to inflate the bags, which we have over here. So we do have airlift 5,000 pound bags. We're gonna put those in. Should be a bolt-in kit for the Super Duty. And we also have trailer wire harness that's going to be bed mounted. When you're doing a gooseneck or fifth wheel, your electrical is inside the box. So we're going to side mount that into the box side, tap into the factory wiring, and get this thing in, ready to haul. Step one of putting in a gooseneck hitch is finding center of that recessed spot. So you're going to measure between the wheel wells and get your center distance. That's going to end up somewhere right in here. And then what you're going to do is off the bed, off the back on this truck, it's going to be 45.5 inches back from the edge of the tailgate or the edge of the bed to the center of this. And where you make your cross is dead center, where you're going to want to drill a 4-inch hole so the hitch can come through right in the center of this. Hopefully I measured correctly. The one thing I'll do is deburr this a little bit, and then I'm gonna put some paint on here because you don't want that raw metal just sitting in the wind, especially in Minnesota. I'd say it could rust, but this is that wonderful aluminum. So it's not gonna rust, but it could corrode. I'm still gonna put some paint on it. Step one done. We've got the hitch in, the main plate's bolted up. That one's done. You can see it's nice and centered in that hole. The last thing to do was add the U-bolt bracket. So I went underneath, drilled up with a pilot hole with a smaller drill bit. That way I didn't have to measure. Not gonna say it's lazy, maybe just smarter. And then I came up top and drilled the larger holes they require. Now these can just drop in. Underneath we'll put springs on them with a nut, and that's gonna keep them pulled down. When you need to use them, all you do is grab and pull up and hook your safety chains on. So that's what these are for, safety chains. This being a gooseneck trailer hitch, there is a difference between gooseneck and fifth wheel. Gooseneck is like this. It's flush, it's down in the bed, and all you do is stick a trailer ball on here, similar to a bumper hitch with a ball on it. It's just larger. It's over the axle. A fifth wheel, what you see in most of your campers. So you got a massive plate that sits inside the bed, probably sits at least 12, 14 inches above the bed floor, takes up pretty much all the space between the wheel well. Very heavy, but kind of looks like what you'd see on the back of a semi. Just a big plate with like a slot, a U-shaped keyway. So you'll back into a trailer that way and actually slide the trailer part of it into that keyway, versus a gooseneck, you're going to have just the ball over it. So you're going to back the truck right to where the pole, I guess you could say, comes down, and you're just going to drop it straight down onto the trailer ball and latch it that way. Not sure which one is easier or harder to hook up. I've never done a fifth wheel hookup before, but goosenecks aren't terrible. I got to get my little strap out of there yet, but I got to pull the pin out that it's hooked around to unlatch it. So we're almost there. Now that we got the hitch installed, it's time to do the wire harness. It's going to be put into the bedside. Any of the gooseneck hitches or fifth wheel plates, you have to add the wire harness for the trailer plug-in on the inside of the bed, because it's not going to reach over to the rear bumper. So from Kurt, I got this kit. So this plug here is going to sit in the bedside. We're going to have to drill a hole for that. And then you've got your wire harness. So there's a T on one end, which is going to tap into the factory harness behind the bumper. And then you're going to route the wire up into the bedside. And this end is going to plug into the back of the new plug-in. Looks like it comes with 4 of these washers, these rubber grommets that are threaded. So we're going to have to drill 4 holes to screw that in, as well as the larger hole, so this can sit inside the bed. So I've got my hole saw kit. I think it's going to be this one here, 51 millimeter. Yeah, looks like that's going to go just the right size, just a little bit bigger. So we're going to get that set up. So what this will do is thread on. So that threads in place. And this collar should fit. Why is that not coming down? All right, we'll get that in there. We'll get our spot marked out. Definitely look behind this from underneath. Make sure you've got all the clearance. You're not going to drill into any other electrical that's sitting there, or drill through the box side. That would be terrible. Should be plenty of room. We'll get looking on that here. All our holes drilled, so now we've got these little rubber nut certs. They're threaded, so those just kind of gonna slide right in there. So when we put this in, they're just gonna screw right in there. We'll get the wire ran up from underneath so we can connect that and drop it down. We're under the truck now. I've got, hard to see without the light, but wires hooked in, it's coming down. I'm gonna do a couple zip ties, but now we're over the frame and over the back side of the bed here. And this is where the factory trailer harness comes in from the bumper. I'm gonna push this tab. This is gonna come out. So that's our factory harness right there. And what this new one is gonna do, this new one's gonna plug into it. Let's see here. The right end on here. A few wires. All right, that one is in. Somebody's been under this truck before with some other wires. I hate tangled wires. A little dusty under here. What I'm trying to do is make this other connection. So this is the new end that's going to tee into it. Trying to get wires to bend in tight spots can be difficult with one hand. I think we got it. Oh, there we go. There, heard a little click. So that is in. So that's factory harness, new harness, teed in. New end goes into the back of factory trailer harness, and then up the bed. So this thing is ready. I'm just gonna get these cleaned up and tucked up. I'll probably get those zip tied up above the frame here, up out of the way, because the spare tire still has to go back in here. But next is gonna be airbags and an air compressor. You can see the hitch underneath. When the ball is stowed away, it just drops underneath and just sits there. That was kind of a pain to get all of that in there. I had to drop the exhaust down, clearance for a couple of the bolts up on the front of this plate here. That's what the underneath of a gooseneck looks like. It's just a big metal structure that bolts from frame to frame. Goes over on the other side. There are some plates on the other side of the frame rail. We've got our shocks in here. The rear end's almost done. Almost ready to tow. All right, it's time for the airbag setup. I've got airlift, 5,000 pound adjustable airbags. This is gonna help level out the truck, keep any trailer a lot more sturdy when you're towing, so no rear sag. We've got a couple bags, some brackets, It's a complete bolt-on kit. Airline, which I'm going to tie into a compressor and do a in-cab onboard switch. You can go the cheap route and buy just this kit and run just a regular old Schrader valve somewhere. A lot of people put them in the fuel door to hide them. You can put it out the rear bumper, anywhere it's easy access to put an air chuck on here or a little portable air compressor and fill up your airbags. I want to make it a little easier. In the cab, hit a button, watch the gauge go up, know exactly how much pressure is in there, and you can adjust accordingly while you drive even. So we're gonna get this in place in the rear axle.
These guys gotta go.
Sua piranha safada, vem, vem, fuder, 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 vem, vem, fuder. Vai xerequinha, toma, 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 toma. 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 Vem, vem, fuder, vem,
Oh no. Damn it. Come on. All right, time to get the bags installed here. There's a few parts that are gonna go on. Top of the bag is gonna go into the top bracket's gonna go into those studs there, those carriage bolts. The bag, the bottom mount is gonna sit on this kind of this ledge sitting off the block. It's all one part of this block. It's going to bolt down around the axle and around the side of the block. So I got this structure kind of built here. The air fitting is going to go to the inside of the truck. See how we can do this here. Oh, you know what? I wonder, I might have to jack up the truck itself a little bit. I think I'm going to put a jack on the rear hitch, lift up the truck a little to kind of get the axle to drop down. Give me just a little more space to work with here. Let's do that. All right, now we've got the axle, not the axle, well, the axle's hanging down lower. The box, the truck is jacked up off the rear hitch, so that opened up this gap quite a bit more. Give me a little more room to work with here. It's not the funnest laying on your back doing this. But as you can see, that's definitely a lot easier. That extra space there. No sense in fighting it if you don't have to. There we go. I'm just getting these washers and nuts started on the top. Again, my air fitting right here is to the inside of the truck because our air line is going to come in to the center of the truck and tee together. So now this U-bolt will come through somewhere here. I'm trying to do this blindfolded basically. I'm gonna go to the top bolt if I can. There we go. So what this one's gonna do is suck this tight. I think that's the first one I'm gonna tighten. Can't see what I'm doing. Get in there. There we go. Alright, so those are started. Now be mindful of your brake line here. See where this ends up sitting. Okay. There's nothing on the front side of the axle, just the brake line on the back side. And I'm guessing ABS sensor? Whatever this wire is for. Okay. I think I'm gonna end up cutting those off a little short. Now just to tighten it up. This is what it looks like. You've got your bottom axle bracket, your U-bolt from the side of the lift block or the suspension block ties this bracket in, and then you've got your 4 carriage bolts holding the top plate on. We've got our air line to the inside. There's a nice gap. Exhaust is going to get a little warm, but they give you a shield for that. I don't think I'm going to go that way though, because I'm doing an onboard compressor, so I have to find a home for that. So what I'm going to end up doing is running this line up the frame that way, toward the front of the cab because my compressor is probably going to mount on a frame rail somewhere if I can find a good spot for it. I'd like to keep it on the inside, but might go on the outside of this frame. We'll see where I'm going to put that here. First, we're going to button up the other side, get that bag on. I've got the bracket ready to go, so we'll just get this side done. Time for the air compressor. I kind of looked up and down this whole frame. There's a couple open spots really on the passenger side, on the outside part of it. I was really hoping to get it kind of on the inside of the frame rail. This is about the only location. The problem is the exhaust is sitting right there, and I just don't want it to be too hot and either melt the plastic or make the compressor run hotter than it should and wear it out early. I'm not a huge fan of it being on the outer part of the frame rail just for snow and salt and all that kind of crap, but it's a good spot. It's easy access to it. So this is where it's gonna go. We're gonna get this mounted now. Not the most fun thing. Whoops. All right, there it is mounted. Got our power and ground here. And a little stub, that's gonna be our air connection on the front. These used 4 self-tapping screws, makes it pretty easy, no pre-drilling holes. As you can see, I used a kind of a 90-degree angle adapter on my drill. You can't get a drill fully in here, so that definitely helps a lot. Makes it pretty easy. Here we've got the rest of the components for the air compressor. Compressor's already mounted on the frame, ready to go. That was kind of step 1. This may look cumbersome or like there's a lot. There really isn't a whole lot. You've got a relay that's going to run the power. Don't be afraid of relays. I'm not an electrical guy by no means. The instructions are pretty good on what they tell you. You've got power wire, 15 amp fuse that goes to the battery between the relay. And there's another 5 amp fuse that's going to run between the relay, I believe, and the compressor maybe. Then we just have our 12 volt power wire. That's going to be running a couple spots. And then we've got our gauge. This is supposed to be inside the cab. You've got just pressure up, pressure down. Everything comes pre-assembled on the back like this. This is the way it showed up out of the box. We're going to connect our air line into that T-fitting, and then we're going to wire a couple power sources. Not too big a deal. And that's what some of these pieces are for. Some heat shrink butt connectors. Comes with some heat shrink tube as well, some zip ties, little ground wire. I will say this diagram right here, if you can read this, you can put this system in. Not too complicated. We've got our rear airbags. This little T-fitting that comes with it is gonna tie right in. You're gonna run the right airbag into one side, left airbag into the other. And this one here is going to go all the way up to the back of our gauge pod. And then from the gauge pod, that air runs into the compressor. So the compressor is going to feed into this gauge, into the switch. And then when you turn the switch up, it's going to put the air pressure out, inflating the bags. And then you've got a ground wire on the back of the switch, and then a couple power wires. And the relay, it shows you what colors go to what. So fairly simple. If you can read this diagram, again, don't be afraid of relays. What the numbers 85, 86, 30, 87, as they open and close to power, that's kind of how they work. But again, I'm not an electrical guy, so even for me, this is pretty simple. Just running some wires and airline and making some connections. So this I'm not too fond of. Basically, just screw this right up under the dash. I don't like the look of this hanging down. I think I may take this gauge out and take the switch out and find a different home for it inside the cab, make it a little nicer looking. But we'll see. I'm going to take a look in the cab. I haven't looked at it yet to even see where I want to put this or where I can put it. So I think I'm going to get this mounted. That'll determine how much airline I need, how much power wire I need, and then go under the hood and see where that relay is going to fit. This does have 2 batteries in it, one on the driver's side, one on the passenger side, which makes it a little easier. I have some options if one side is full or tight. I can utilize the battery on the other side for the relay, probably mounted on the firewall or inside the fender somewhere. So we'll take a look. I'm going to do some research and some digging here on where I want to mount some things, and then we'll get going on this. Back to this guy. I looked all over in the cab. There's not a lot of good options to put this in the cab where I like it, where it's not just ugly and hanging down off the bottom of the dash and kicking it, hitting it with your knee. So I think I decided to mount it back in the bed right above the plug-in. I'm going to take this metal plate off and drill some holes, cut some holes. It's pretty deep as far as that goes, so what I'm going to do is flip this T. This end was on this hose, so it was sticking straight out even farther. So I'm going to flip it so it ends like this, and the hose running out to the compressor is going to run down, so it's not going to be any deeper. But as far as these go, all you're going to do is take these two nuts off the back. That slides off, and then this just pops right out. So that's as simple as that goes. So what I'm going to do is get the hole saws back out and drill another hole in the bed, just the size of this, and then I'll put this on the back side and get that attached. Then I'm also going to do the same with this. Of course, this one's not round, so this one's going to be a little more challenging, but we'll get a square cut in. And I think we're going to put it right above into that open spot right there. I could go off to the side further, but I actually think it's kind of convenient to put it there, because when you hook up the hitch, you have to plug that in to right there, and while you're plugging that in, you're just going to be able to flip the switch to pump the airbags up however you need it. So I think that part's convenient. You lose the convenience of being able to adjust it in the cab. However, the way these come anyway, typically the bag comes with just a valve that you would end up having to be outside at your fuel door or rear bumper, or wherever you decide to run these to, and manually pump them up regardless. So being in the bed, I don't think is a terrible option. It'll be clean, it'll be convenient, to kind of a reminder to fill your bags up with air while you're plugging the trailer in. So all you have to do is run a little extra wire. So that's the trade-off. You either run less air hose, more wire, or mount it in the cab and run more wire, less air hose. Now, the other nice part about this is I can run all my electrical along the frame and up into the engine compartment. I'm not going to have to drill any holes into the cab. Had I run it in the cab, we're going to have to drill a hole for the airline to go in and electrical. So now I don't have to put any more holes through the firewall of the cab and possible water leaks into the cab. So maybe this is a much better route. I can keep everything underneath the truck and don't have to add any holes. About ready for our wire connections here. The switch has two wires, power ground. I need to extend them before I drop it in the bed of the truck. mainly so I'm not trying to do this up in between the bed and the bedside. So they give you a heat shrink type butt connector. We're going to connect one end here. And what I did actually was I've got some heat shrink tube as well. I'm going to put that around that butt connector just to be extra sure that it doesn't get wet. Nothing worse than electrical that gets wet. So I'll just get these crimped here. That's going to be my ground wire. Take some heat and shrink this around. So this is what is supposed to make it weatherproof. Just kind of evenly shrink that or heat that connector up. So that part's looking good. I'm gonna let that cool down a minute before I try to get my heat shrink tube around it. If this is really hot and you try to slide this over, the heat can actually shrink this while you're trying to move it over, and you're gonna get stuck. Been there, done that before. I'll get this one ready. A little more wire. I just like to twist my wires around, just so there's no loose wire hanging around. Personal preference of mine. There we go. There's that one. So this red wire that already has the fitting is gonna go to the air compressor. It has a fitting on that side already. So that is what that one's gonna do. If I look at the directions here, right now I'm working on the back of this switch right here. So you've got the ground coming off. So what we're looking at, this one here on the right side of the switch is going to ground. That's why I attached this black wire, should be ground. And then the one on the left here traces down to our relay, which is going to be the black wire on the relay. So if you take out the relay, we've got a black wire right on the relay here. So this guy is going to, or sorry, this one here that's not connected yet is going to run all the way up to the relay. So So I'm going to need more wire for that one. All right, back to it here. Got my black wire, which usually is ground, but in this case runs to the black wire on the relay. We'll get this guy shrunk. This is really why I put on the other part of shrink wrap, because I know that this wire here isn't quite, this wire is just a little small. I don't know that it made a great seal against it. This stuff can only shrink so far. Maybe it did. Definitely did around here. You can see it's kind of glossy against all the black wire. Means it is tight to that. We'll grab the other one here that's cooled down. I'm going to stretch this over. And this only has so much shrinkability as well. But you can see it's kind of shrunk all around that connector. I'm also going to add a little bit of electrical tape to each end. Overly cautious. Feel that. So that should be pretty sealed up. Let's do the other one. And these are going to be tucked up in the box, kind of behind the, in between the box side and the box itself. So shouldn't be too much weather getting up there. But I'd rather be safe than sorry here. And those two, I'll probably tie those together. I know my short one's ground. All right, so we've got our switch all ready. We are gonna tap an air line into this post as well. This one runs to the gauge and to the airbags. This one runs to the compressor from the compressor. I do have both of these air lines run up into the bed now through the holes I made. I don't know that I'm gonna be able to connect them all in the bed. I might have to reach up and make a connection, but we'll see here. So I've got my two lines. I kept them separate. This one is going to be going to the gauge. This one goes to the back of that switch. Start with this one. We'll get it cut here. We have to put our little hose clamp on. The one thing you got to do, according to the instructions, this line is kind of stiff. They want you to heat it up a little bit. I'm gonna put the heat gun on low. You don't want to overheat it. Just enough for it to get over the hose barb. Just softening it up a little bit. There we go. Alright, now we got the clamp over. So I need to drop these wires down. Now the short hose is going to be the one going to one side of the gauge here, and this hose goes to my airbags directly. So I'm gonna cut this one now. This one I can connect in here. There we go. These wires here are for a light. I don't think I'm going to run the light. So those I'm just going to take off. That's not a big deal. Tricky part is going to be trying to connect this hose, I think, to this guy. Do it. I don't want to kink the hoses. Might have to do it behind there. All right, there we go. Feels like it's in. Usually you can feel a little, like a little pop almost. when it's completely in. There it goes. There. Now I felt it. Make sure our gauge is faced up. There we go, that popped in. Now I gotta go on the back side and put on my little clamp. That'll be fun reaching up there, but that gives you a good idea of what this looks like. Pretty clean. Clean install, I would say. Something to note when cutting airline or really any hard plastic air hose at all, whether it be for air suspension or tools, parts, anything like that, you got to be mindful of how you're cutting it. The best way is with a little cutter like this. There's a few different varieties. What it does, it allows it to make that nice straight cut, so you don't have any burrs or cracked edges. When you push these into an air fitting, they got to be really straight. If they're crooked, angled, the fitting might not seal. Pretty much the worst thing you can do is take a cutter like this. If I had a sharp one. First, that's at an angle. But what happens there is now it's actually, it's not round. It's never going to seal very well. So you definitely don't want to use a side cutter. Worst, like if you're really in a pinch, you can use a razor blade. I've done that plenty of times. Thought I had one around here. I did. There it is. What I would do if I were like on a job site or working on a car, cutting this, I would take my razor blade, get this straight, and just work it straight down like that. And now we still have a nice straight line, straight cut. It's not damaged or kinked on the end or out of round. So you can certainly get away with the razor blade. You just got to be careful. Make sure it's a nice straight cut so you won't have any air leaks. This is the finished result. I've got about 30 pounds of pressure, just under. I've had that sitting in the bags for 24 hours now, just testing for leaks. Pressure hasn't changed one bit. So that tells me there's no leaks in the system. Up is air it up. We have it run to switched power, meaning the truck ignition needs to be on, at least to run position, doesn't need to be running, but it does need to be on. It will air out without power, because it's just releasing, opening a valve to release the air. So that's the airbag system. Got our 7-way plug there. So when you hook up your gooseneck, super simple. Just hook it up and you're a couple feet away from your airbags to air up and plug your harness in. This is the turnover ball style. So right now the ball is reversed, meaning it's out of the way when you're not towing. Super convenient. All you do is pull a latch on the side under the wheel well. It'll release a pin, and this just pulls right up. You flip it over and drop this back in place, and the ball will be up top right here. Then we've got our safety chain hooks. They are spring loaded, so when you're not using them, they retract right back down into the bed. Nice easy setup. That's what the B&W turnover ball system is like. Remember, this was the air compressor I mounted along the frame rail. The only thing I had to do was run power wire up to the engine bay. That's where the relay is mounted. I've got my air line running down along this factory wire, and I also have the one accessory wire to switch power from that air switch in the back for the pump. That runs up here as well, and I actually have that coming in right above here. So I've got my two power wires together, running along the factory harness and up underneath the fender liner up into the engine bay where we have the relay sitting. This is the relay that came with it. I've got my 12 volt power. So this is a 15 amp fuse. It runs up right onto the battery terminal. There's a ignition, 12 volt ignition source. That's gonna be that wire in the fuse box right here. Instead of going into the firewall, creating another hole, tagging a fuse inside, I decided to just run off a fuse under the engine compartment. So what that is, right now, if I take a test light on this fuse, there should be no power. So no light comes on because right now the switch is off, or the truck is off. If you turn it to run position, this will actually light up. Kind of like this one. This one's got full power all the time. So get a cheap test light. This thing was $5. And it'll allow you to test these fuses. So what you do is just hook this to a ground, any ground on the body or the chassis, and just test for power. So if there's power, it's gonna light up. If there's no power, it's not gonna light up. That's how you test for bad fuses too. If you don't wanna pull every one of these out and you've got a system not working, like all of a sudden your horn doesn't work or your radio doesn't work, find the manual, find where the fuse is, and just simply test it. And you wanna test it on both sides. There's two little holes basically on each side that show the metal. You want to test both sides, because if that's broken in the middle, one side might have power, but it's not getting through to the other side. And then I've got my other two wires coming up. So the wire diagram that comes with wires the relay for you, basically. I mean, it tells you I forget the colors at the moment. I believe black was direct to the battery, one goes to the air compressor, one goes to that switch in the back, and then one goes to this fuse panel. So the two wires I brought from the back go right into this relay, and then you just have a power out and a switched power out. Sounds confusing, but if you just look at the wire diagram, follow the color chart, you'll be good to go.